Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. It is time for another installment of Friday Q&A. A big thank you to everybody who submitted a question on the last Q&A video. If you have a question you would like me to answer on next week's video, simply pop it in the comments section below. And if you want to support what I'm doing here on the channel, like my amazing patrons do over at Patreon, or like all the legends who have gone and checked out the music that I make with my band Ragdoll, I will link all of that in the video description. You can even get some cheeky free stuff like my cab IR if you check the video description. As always, let's rip into this week's questions. I've been talking about doing a Criss Oliva deep dive video for quite a while now, probably dating back to when I did the Sabotage 5 Killer Riffs video. I'm still blown away at how well received that video was. That turns out there's a lot of Sabotage fans out there, and we are not alone. It's a big community, and Criss's tone and his playing have been a massive, massive influence on me. It's a video that I definitely want to do. I've slowly been researching it and talking to some people about things that Criss used in his rig, but the biggest part of the tone, of course, is Criss and the way that he played. I was teaching some Sabotage during the week with one of my students, and we both kind of commented on Criss's very unique ability to always sound relaxed, whether he was kind of ripping out some bluesy licks on a track or whether he was absolutely shredding. His groove and his time feel were really unique for rock and metal players at the time. And if anything, that more than the specific ideas or the specific sounds, all of which are great, were probably as big an impact on me as just the sound of those records. And also, if you listen to early stuff like Power of the Night, or you listen to Hall of the Mountain King, and you contrast that with some of the stuff off Edge of Thorns or Streets or Gutter Ballet, there's a big range of tones on there. So I think if I do get around to doing that video, it will not just be about the tones. It will be more of just another tribute to a fantastic guitar player who was taken away from us way too soon. Always lovely to get this question. When are we going to get some more episodes of the Gear podcast? We've actually been on a little bit of a roll. This year has been pretty disrupted for both myself and Troy doing the podcast, but we've done 4 weeks in a row, and we hope to make that a much longer stretch on this one. So there are 4 new episodes out. I haven't been uploading them in sequential order on the channel just because of other things that I've been trying to get up on the channel, but they are released weekly if you check your favorite podcast app. So whether you're using a dedicated podcast app or you're using like YouTube Music or Spotify, the podcast should be showing up there on Wednesday or Thursday whenever we put them out. It's been great to be back in the swing of things, and it's always nice to have a little bit of a refresh and a new perspective on things, especially with the overall release cycle of so much new guitar gear, but also just the phases we go through as musicians and artists, where we get into certain styles of music or certain types of equipment to make sounds with. And it's just an excuse for me and Troy to basically hang out, catch up with one another, and also interact with all of you lovely people. So I'm so glad that people are digging the podcast, and there are many, many more episodes to come.
Theme song for the Gear podcast.
All right. My top 5 chorus effects of all time. The top 5 Chorii. That has to be the title of the video, right? So if you've clicked on the video, I've probably called it the top 5 Chorii. This is where you hear about my top 5 Chorii that I can think of right now. And I think there's 3 that immediately come to mind, right? Got to have a Boss CE style chorus, whether it's a CE1, a CE2, a CE3, or even the very underrated CE5. I think that is just synonymous with chorus on guitar sounds. And similarly, it's got to be the Boss or Roland Dimension style chorus. They both do very different things. The CE is a much more, let's say, traditional chorus sound, I guess, because it was kind of the first chorus sound. That makes it, by definition, the traditional chorus sound. The Dimension is much more subtle, and I always describe it as chorus for people who don't really like chorus. So you got to have those 2 in there. I think you also have to have the tri-chorus. I mean, we're all fans of that 80s greasy clean sound that was just smothered in tri-chorus and pitch detune, right? I love that tri-chorus is having its moment again. Then we come to maybe 2 slightly controversial choices, because I'm trying to fit like 8 or 9 of my favorite chorus units into a list of 5. I'm going to go with an electro harmonics modulation that can be used as a chorus. Technically, it's a chorus if you set it up like this, but it is the Electric Mistress. And I know technically the Electric Mistress is a flanger, but if you turn the feedback all the way down on there, I mean, you've got a chorus on there, right? And when I figured out, or I was introduced to the Electric Mistress and I heard that sound, I immediately went, that's the chorus sound that I've been looking for from the late 70s that David Gilmour and Alex Lifeson and Andy Summers were using in their rig. Maybe if you're a fan of wobblier style chorus or you really like grunge tones and bands like Nirvana, then the small clone could take its place. But for me, it's the Electric Mistress. And then this was a shootout between two of my favorite chorus styles, the Yamaha symphonic preset in the SPX 90. That's just a massive sounding chorus, and I love it so much, mostly because of its use on Ozzy Osbourne's No More Tears record. Like, it's the Zack chorus. But another one that I think is a much more accessible unit that's just an amazing high quality sounding chorus is the TC Electronic SCF. And I know you were thinking I was going to say the 1210. The 1210 is amazing as well, but because TC have the reissue SCF and it's so widely available, and 1210s are kind of hard to come by now, and I think the SCF was probably more widely used, I'm going to go with the stereo chorus flanger from TC Electronics. So out of those two, I mean, have I just listed like 7 or 8 choruses in there? I have, haven't I? But I think if you wanted a good overview of the world of chorus, get a Boss CE style, get a Boss Dimension, get some kind of electro harmonics pedal, and then some kind of rack mount chorus, whether it is a tri-chorus or whether it's something like the Eventide Tricera chorus that combines tri-chorus and D-tune, or whether it's an old SPX 90 just for that symphonic preset. And I know, like so many other people, I bought an SPX 90 just for the symphonic preset, but there's so many other goodies in there. In fact, I think if you wanted one rack unit that really captures the vibe of the 80s, it's probably the SPX 90. Anyway, I want to hear from all of you now. What's your favorite chorus unit? What's your favorite chorus style? And what would you recommend to somebody who might not like chorus if you were trying to convince them that it is an essential guitar effect? We had a visitor at the door while we were filming, so they're just going to have to sit here and take all of these wonderful pats. Let's talk about the practice routine and my lack of practice routine at the moment, because it does vary quite a lot and it's very dependent on basically what I'm preparing for. So at the moment, I'm preparing to go to Edinburgh Fringe in a month, and there goes a bunch of things falling over. This is what we really want to see. I'm going to show the whole world your fuzzy butthole. I'm sure that's what they want to see. Please excuse the sound of the cat eating biscuits in the room with me right here. What were we talking about? Practice routines, exactly. It comes down to what I'm preparing for. So at the moment, I have Edinburgh Fringe coming up in about a month. So I'm just getting my chops together for that, learning the songs, making sure that I know them well enough that I can be in a mindset where I can really pay attention to the show, because there is a lot of underscoring and improv and jamming in the shows. So knowing the songs inside out is one thing, but then just being in that headspace where you're kind of prepared for anything and everything. If it's a performer interacting with the crowd, if it's having to play a transition slightly longer because someone's had a costume malfunction, if it's being able to stretch out a jam in the pre-show a little bit longer while the crowd comes in. There are just so many variables in that show. So I just try to basically play the tracks, maybe once a day, once every other day at the moment, because I am a month out, and then practice a bunch of ideas inspired by certain sections. So, if there's going to be a point in the show where you might be vamping on something or you're playing something a bit bluesy or jazzy, just working on some vocab around that. I still will at least once a week run through a bunch of my favorite shreddy exercises on there to keep the chops up, whether it's stuff off, say, Paul Gilbert's Intense Rock 1, whether it's jamming over a Malmsteen track or something like that, just trying to keep those high intensity chops going. And I always do try to at least learn one new lick, idea, or concept, whether it's a simple little turnaround, whether it's a couple of chords, or whether it's just learning a song that I heard during the week and trying to work out, again, some new vocabulary in there. Just be in that growth mindset. I think that's the most important thing. Basically, the most important thing is practice. Just do it. Pick up the guitar and start playing. Once you've got that far, then you can start to worry about all the specifics of it. And there is so much noise, especially on YouTube, about you need to be practicing certain things. I think just play. Just get that far, just play. We're all just trying to access that creative flow state and to have some fun at the end of the day, right? So focus on that. Do I have any advice for expanding your chord vocabulary? I certainly do, and there are two words that are very important here. It's Ted Green. I would highly recommend Ted's chord chemistry book if you are new to learning how to construct chords and work with basic harmony. And I love Ted's modern jazz chord progressions books. I've got both volumes. They're one of those things where there is just so much information packed in there that you can sit down for 10 minutes after dinner each night, pick up a guitar. You don't even have to plug it in. Just sit down and learn a particular chord progression in there and just sit with it, enjoy it, let time do its thing. Is that what we do around here? You're sick of me playing Ted Green's chord progressions really, really badly? I'm sure you probably are. But I feel like that's a great way to just add some vocab in there. And then, like anything else, like I was just saying before, learn tunes, learn some Steely Dan songs because they have loads and loads of expensive chords in them. Learn some Michael McDonald tunes or just yacht rock in general. That stuff is packed with absolute goodness. If you're a rock player approaching this stuff for the first time, it can be a little bit daunting, but learn it the same way that you learnt rock guitar. Just start with your favorite stuff and expand from there. When am I going to get my hands on a Marshall Jubilee to demo on the channel? That is a great question. In fact, my buddy Martin, shout out to Martin, who's loaned me loads of great gear over the years, actually pointed out that he's got a friend who has a Jubilee. So there's a great thing about having mates with gear. They also have mates with gear. So if you've got a mate with a mate who's got a Jubilee, then please let me know, because that is one of the last Marshalls that I have yet to demo on this channel. And it's an amp I've always been curious about. A buddy of mine had the Slash signature Marshall, the very first one. That's basically just a Jubilee clone, and that thing sounded absolutely amazing. So I feel like in 2025, that's a goal that I should accomplish, is to do a demo of the mighty Jube. Some gear-related questions now. Have I ever tried the Digitech, how's it pronounced? The IPS-33B. That's the famous or infamous Digitech pitch shifter that Joe Satriani used on the track Y from The Extremist. Actually, that question was a great excuse to go back and listen to The Extremist, and I forgot how much I enjoyed that album. People always talk about a couple of Satriani albums. That is one of them that I think if you're new to Satch, you should definitely check out. It's some of his best work, but the pitch shifting on that is so unique. That is definitely high on the list of rack units, kind of like the Jubilee. I'm surprised I've never tried one to this point. It is such a cult classic, and it has a track associated with it, which is kind of a rare thing. A lot of this stuff was often utility studio gear, but having a very, very famous guitar instrumental by arguably the most famous guitar instrumentalist of the last 40 odd years, we can't say 50 or 60 years because Hank Marvin is in the equation then. But yeah, I mean, if Satch used it, it must have been pretty good. So definitely want to check that one out. The other one was a couple of questions about the Hot Tone Ampero. And if I had to pick a unit that is, let's say, the best of the rest, like it's not a Quad Cortex, a Fractal, a Line 6, or a Kemper, the big dogs, the established players in there, what would I recommend? And I recommend the Ampero series. Hot Toner, absolutely killing it. Not just in terms of tones, but in terms of flexibility and usability. I have the Ampero 2 stage. I've got a preset pack for the Ampero 2 stage as well, if you want to check it out. The fact that they added a capture style player to it, the fact that they've got some awesome greasy effects in there and some just solid sounding amp models and a fantastic UI on there, I think has really shaken up the whole modeler space, and Hot Tone are definitely doing some great stuff. I mean, I've got their new Verbera reverb here, which I just did a demo with. This is fantastic as well. Their stuff as well feels premium, but you're not paying a premium price. So I'm a big fan of what Hot Tone are doing. If it was a choice between that and the HX Stomp, that's a tough one. I think it really depends on what you need. The Stomp has the advantage that you can basically go into any music store anywhere in the world and buy one. It is definitely one of the best pieces of gear released over the last 20 or 30 years. You see it in all sorts of rigs. The Stomp is a classic. Can't go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with the Ampero if you don't want to spend the big money on one of the established players. And is the Ampero a good place to start as a modeler? I think it is. I think it's something that you can build a rig about and just kind of add elements to that you might feel are missing. It's also just a great device to learn on because you've got all of those great models in there. They're easy to access. You've got the cloning capability on the stage, and you've got some really lovely sounding time-based effects in there. So I think if you had an Ampero as a starting point as a modeler, that's so much better than like the Zoom 707 and some of those Digitech units that were around back in the day when I was starting out What a time to be alive. This question comes from friend of the channel, Matt Gilbert. Matt is looking at getting a Strat style guitar and a valve combo. Around 1,200 Australian dollars Matt has to spend. Well, I would say, Matt, go for maybe an artist guitar Strat style. They have a bunch of stuff that is fantastic. It's less than 500 Australian dollars. They are really, really solid. They pack a lot of great features in there. The ones that I have tried have come out of the box pretty well set up and easy to get going. That way you'd have $600 or $700 spare to spend on an amplifier. And I would definitely go down the used route here. Try to find yourself, maybe a used Marshall DSL combo or a used Hot Rod Deluxe, if you can find one for that price, or a Blues Junior would be another one. The Orange Tiny Terror is another one that I often see pop up under the $700 or $800 mark as well. So something like that from an established player. Get yourself an amp that's going to be solid and hopefully gig worthy, because that is absolutely an investment. Then something like the artist guitars, I think are just great value for money. And if you want something that can cover a variety of different styles, it doesn't just have to be a one-trick pony that can do rock or metal or pop, then a Strat's a great place to start, right? So that would be my recommendation within that budget in Australia. I am keen to hear from some other people, though, who would have recommendations there. I'm not the most savvy shopper when it comes to these kind of things. What do you think? One last one for this week's video. Why do I throw so much shade at Reaper with Troy on the Gear podcast? It's mostly just for the lols, you know what I mean? Like, I have no problem with Reaper. There's so many people making amazing music out there with Reaper. And there's so many things that I like about it, where it's a one-time fee. You get a lifetime license on it. It has a very generous trial period on there. It is so easy to integrate your custom workflows in there. I can see why so many people love it. Just every time I've tried to use it, it has just totally not worked for me. It's one of those things where, let's say you don't like Les Pauls, and somebody who loves Les Pauls is trying to convince you that Les Pauls are awesome. The person who doesn't like Les Pauls really is just going, they don't work for me. They're too big and bulky. I don't like the sounds. I'm a Strat guy, or I like semi-hollow guitars. A Les Paul isn't it. With DAWs, the best DAW is the one that you know how to use. And for me, that one is Pro Tools. And because UA Luna basically is just Pro Tools made by Universal Audio, I've been using that one. It is free to use with the UA hardware that I already own. So basically that's why I use Luna, because it's easy for me to use and it doesn't get in the way. Again, the best DAW is the one that you know how to use. I'm kind of glad that the whole DAW wars are over, where there seems to be this minimum feature set that has been established, where once you get over that threshold, you can focus on the important thing, which is having some fun, writing some riffs and making some loud noises on there. So if your DAW allows you to do that and you can work with it and you can work fast with it, that's the most important thing. Again, nothing against Reaper. It's just a bit of bants. That is it for this week's Q&A video. If you've got a question for next week, pop it in the comments section below. Again, if you want to support the channel, there are links in the video description to do that. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend. Be good to one another, and I will see you on the next one. Do you have any deep thoughts you'd like to share with the audience? Is that right? What's your practice routine like?